A former slot technician just told me something that casino managers absolutely hate. There are 7 specific slot machines on the casino floor right now with RTPs so high that casinos actually lose money when certain players hit them. We're talking about documented return-to-player percentages of 97 to 99%, compared to the typical 88 to 92% you'll find on most machines. Now, here's what makes this information so valuable. Casinos know these machines exist. They know educated players seek them out, and they've developed very specific strategies to hide them, bury them in terrible locations, limit the denominations you can play, or remove them from the floor entirely. I'm going to reveal all 7 of these machines, tell you exactly where to find them if they still exist, and explain which specific versions you need to play to get these exceptional return rates. Machine number 4 has an RTP so high that 3 major casino chains removed it from their floors entirely, and when you hear why, you're going to understand exactly how much casinos fear educated players. Let's start with machine number 1, Bloodsuckers. This is the lowest volatility high RTP machine that most people have never heard of, and there's a very specific reason for that. Bloodsuckers has a certified RTP of 98%, according to independent testing labs, making it one of the highest verified return-to-player percentages in the entire industry. Now, you might be wondering why casinos would ever install a machine with a 98% RTP when they could fill that same floor space with something that keeps 12% instead of 2%. Here's what former slot floor managers have revealed about this situation. The low volatility of Bloodsuckers means consistent small wins that slowly drain the machine's hold percentage. Unlike high volatility machines where players might lose 50 spins in a row before hitting a bonus, Bloodsuckers pays out frequently in small amounts. This creates a mathematical nightmare for casino operators because the theoretical RTP actually matches the observed RTP over relatively short time periods. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's a casino regular who decided to do something most players never do. She documented 3 solid months of play on Bloodsuckers, tracking every session, every spin, every win and loss. Margaret played minimum bet, nothing fancy, no system or strategy, just consistent play. After 90 days, her spreadsheet showed she was up $2,400. Now, before you think that sounds amazing, understand that Margaret played nearly every day, sometimes for 4 or 5 hours at a time. She wasn't getting rich. She was essentially getting paid a small hourly rate to sit at a slot machine, which tells you everything about what a 98% RTP actually means in practice. But here's what casino managers noticed about machines like this. When you have a player like Margaret who's consistently winning, or at least losing very slowly, other players notice. They start asking questions. They start paying attention to which machines seem to pay more frequently. And that's exactly what casinos cannot afford to have happen on their main floor. So, what did they do with Bloodsuckers? According to former slot floor managers, this machine gets moved to the worst locations within weeks of installation because it simply doesn't generate the hold percentages that corporate demands. You'll find it tucked in back corners, near the bathrooms, in smoking sections, anywhere that has low foot traffic. But there's another element to this story that's even more deliberate. The game itself is themed to be creepy and unappealing to casual players. The graphics are dark, the vampire theme is off-putting to many demographics, and the overall aesthetic screams low-budget production. This isn't accidental. When a game developer creates a high RTP machine, they often deliberately make it visually unappealing because they know casinos will only accept it if it doesn't attract high volumes of players. The math might favor players, but the presentation ensures most players will walk right past it looking for something that seems more exciting. Machine number 2, Mega Joker. This is a classic cabinet design that most people assume is just another basic fruit machine, but it has a secret that casino managers discovered too late. The base game on Mega Joker has an 85% RTP, which is actually below average and exactly what casinos want. But there's an upper game called Super Meter mode, and when you play in Super Meter mode, the RTP jumps to 99%. Here's what knowledgeable players figured out, and what eventually got this machine removed from most major casino floors. You could cycle between the two modes strategically. You'd bet minimum on the base game, bank every small win to the Super Meter, then bet maximum on the 99% RTP mode. Let me tell you about Frank, because his story is exactly why casinos hate this machine. Frank was a professional advantage player, and I use that term deliberately because Frank didn't consider himself a gambler. He considered himself a mathematician who happened to extract money from casinos. He documented 6 months of play on Mega Joker, tracking over 50,000 spins across multiple casinos in 3 different states. His spreadsheet showed a 2.3% profit over that entire period. Now, 2.3% might not sound impressive until you understand what that actually means in a casino environment. Frank wasn't getting lucky. He was consistently beating the mathematical house edge through strategic mode selection and optimal betting patterns. This is exactly the nightmare scenario that casino analytics departments are designed to prevent. According to former slot technicians who worked during the period when Mega Joker was still common on casino floors, management started noticing something unusual around 2016 and 2017. Certain machines were showing hold percentages significantly below theoretical expectations, and when they pulled the data, they found the same player IDs, showing up repeatedly on the same cabinet numbers. These weren't random recreational players feeding money into the machine for entertainment. These were disciplined, systematic players who understood exactly what they were doing. The casino response was swift and quiet. Former technicians report that Mega Joker cabinets were systematically removed from major Las Vegas properties between 2018 and 2020. No announcements, no explanations to players who asked where their favorite machine went. Just silent removal during overnight maintenance windows. If you search for Mega Joker in a physical casino today, you're going to have a very difficult time finding it. The machine still exists in online casinos where floor space isn't a constraint, but the physical cabinets have become exceptionally rare. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about machine number 3. This one has documentation showing players actually maintaining a positive expected value over extended time periods, and when casinos figured out what was happening, the removal was even more aggressive. Machine number 3, 1429 Uncharted Seas. This is a medium volatility game from Thunderkick with a fixed RTP of 98.6% across all bet levels, and that last detail is crucial. Most slot machines lower the RTP at higher denominations. It's a common industry practice that most players don't know about. But 1429 Uncharted Seas maintains that 98.6% whether you're betting pennies or dollars. Here's the story of how casinos discovered they'd made a significant mistake installing this game. According to internal reports from a regional casino chain, they installed 1429 Uncharted Seas based primarily on the appealing graphics and the maritime exploration theme. The game has beautiful animation, an attractive color palette, and seemed like it would appeal to a broad demographic. What the installation team apparently didn't do was properly analyze the long-term hold percentage implications of a 98.6% RTP combined with medium volatility and frequent expanding wild triggers. Within 90 days, analytics showed the machine was performing in the bottom 5% for revenue per day compared to other games on the floor. This wasn't a situation where the machine wasn't getting played. It was getting consistent action. The problem was that the consistent action was resulting in consistent small wins that kept players in their seats without generating the hold percentage that justified the floor space. Let me tell you about David, because his story perfectly illustrates what casino managers discovered about this machine. David was a software engineer who approached slot play the way he approached debugging code, methodically, systematically, with detailed documentation. He played exclusively 1429 uncharted seas for 4 months, recording every session in a custom spreadsheet that tracked total wagered, total returned, session length, and dozens of other variables. At the end of 4 months, David had wagered $47,000 in total bets. His total loss was $340. Let me put that in perspective. David's actual loss rate was 0.7%, compared to the typical 8 to 12% loss rate you'd see on standard slot machines. He was getting entertainment value at a fraction of the normal cost. Now here's what casino managers understood when they looked at players like David. This wasn't about David specifically. He was playing minimum bet. He wasn't hurting the casino's bottom line in any meaningful individual sense. But David represents a category of educated player that casinos absolutely cannot afford to encourage. When players start analyzing machines mathematically, when they start tracking RTPs and making informed decisions about which games offer the best value, the entire casino business model starts to crack. The slot floor depends on information. Asymmetry. The casino knows the math, the player doesn't, and that knowledge gap is worth billions of dollars annually. By month 6, 1429 Uncharted Seas was gone from that regional casino chain, replaced with Buffalo Gold. According to the former floor manager who shared this information, the directive came from corporate analytics with a simple explanation. We cannot have machines that teach players to think mathematically about slots. Today you'll find 1429 Uncharted Seas primarily in online casinos where floor space economics work differently, but in physical casinos, it's become exceptionally rare. The few installations that remain are typically in older properties that haven't undergone recent slot floor optimization, and even there you'll find them tucked away in sections that generate minimal foot traffic. Here's why this pattern matters for everything else we're going to discuss. Casinos learned that high RTP machines don't just cost them money directly, they cost them money by educating players. Every person who plays 1429 Uncharted Seas and notices they're losing slower, every player like David who starts tracking results and seeing the mathematical difference represents a potential long-term revenue loss far exceeding what that individual player might win or lose on that specific machine. Machine number 4, Jackpot 6000. This is the machine I mentioned in the introduction, the one that got removed from 3 major casino chains, and when you understand why, you'll see exactly how much control casinos demand over the mathematical relationship between player and machine. Jackpot 6000 has a super meter mode with an RTP of 98.9%, which already puts it in the extreme high end of available slot machines. But what made casino managers truly concerned about this game wasn't just the RTP, it was the decision points. Most slot machines give you zero control. You press the spin button, the random number generator determines the outcome before the reels even stop moving, and you either win or lose based entirely on chance. Jackpot 6000 is different. It has decision points where you choose whether to collect your winnings or continue in supermeter mode. An optimal strategy at these decision points drops the house edge to barely over 1%. Here's what happened between 2015 and 2017 that scared casinos enough to pull this machine from their floors. According to industry reports that former managers have shared, advantage players in Atlantic City specifically targeted Jackpot 6000. These weren't casual recreational gamblers hoping to get lucky. These were networked groups who shared detailed information about which casinos had the machine, what denominations were available, and what the optimal strategy looked like at every decision point. The network operated systematically. They'd identify a casino with jackpot 6,000, determine the peak and off-peak hours, and schedule play sessions to maximize time on the machine while minimizing casino surveillance attention. According to estimates from casino analytics departments, this network extracted approximately $140,000 over 18 months from just 6 machines across 3 Atlantic City properties. Now let's be clear about what that number means. $140,000 split among multiple players over 18 months isn't going to bankrupt a casino. A single baccarat whale can lose more than that in a weekend. But here's what terrified casino management about this situation. It was scalable. The strategy these players used wasn't based on luck, intuition, or even particularly complex mathematics. It was based on publicly available information about the game's rules, combined with disciplined execution of optimal strategy. If this network could extract $140,000 from 6 machines, what happens when the strategy guide gets posted on gambling forums? What happens when 100 players or 1,000 players start systematically seeking out this machine and playing it optimally? The casino response was decisive. 3 major casino chains pulled jackpot 6,000 entirely from their properties. Other casinos that kept it implemented severe restrictions, minimum denomination only, usually nickels, sometimes tucked into high-limit rooms behind velvet ropes where the intimidation factor keeps casual players away. If you find jackpot 6,000 in a physical casino today, and that's a significant if, you're almost certainly looking at the absolute minimum denomination, and the machine is probably located near the bathrooms, in a smoking section, or in some other location that signals to players this isn't a premium game worth their attention. But here's the broader implication that extends beyond just this one machine. Jackpot 6,000 proves something that casino management had long suspected, but now had documented evidence for. Even slots, even games of pure chance, where the random number generator controls everything, can be beaten with proper strategy when the RTP is high enough and the game design includes meaningful player decisions. This revelation changed how casinos evaluate new game installations and directly contributed to the removal of similar machines across the industry. Now, you might be wondering if any of these high RTP machines are actually still available on major casino floors, or if everything we're discussing is essentially archaeological, interesting history, but useless practical information. Machine number 5 is going to surprise you because it's at almost every major casino right now, but there's a specific version you need to find, and most players walk right past it without knowing what they're missing. Machine number 5, Starmania. This is the high RTP game hiding in plain sight, and the reason it's still widely available tells you everything about how casinos think about player psychology versus pure mathematics. Starmania has an RTP of 97.87% with medium volatility and frequent small wins. On paper, this should make casino managers just as nervous as any of the other machines we've discussed. But Starmania has remained on casino floors where Bloodsuckers and Jackpot 6,000 have been removed, and the reason comes down to one simple factor. Almost nobody plays it. The space theme with simple graphics doesn't attract the high-volume recreational players who generate the majority of slot revenue. The game looks basic, almost cheap, compared to the elaborate animated productions like Buffalo Gold or Lightning Link. There are no progressive jackpots advertised above the machine, no community bonus features that draw crowds, nothing about the presentation suggests this is a game worth your time and money. Before I tell you the critical details about which version of Starmania you need to find, I need to ask a favor. If you're finding this information valuable, if you're understanding things about casino slot floors that most players never learn, hit that subscribe button right now. This is exactly the kind of insider knowledge that casinos don't want widely distributed, and the only way this information reaches more people is if you help share it. And let me know in the comments, have you ever played any of these high RTP machines? Did you notice the difference in how frequently they paid compared to standard slots? I read every comment, and I'm genuinely curious about your experiences. All right, here's the critical detail about Starmania that most players miss. Only the 10 payline version has the 97.87% RTP. Many casinos install the 5 payline version, which has an RTP of 95.4%. That's still above average, but it's not the exceptional value we're discussing. You need to identify the correct version, and the way to do that is checking the pay table screen before you play. The 10 payline version will specifically list 10 lines in the payable information, and the top award will be different from the 5 payline version. Most players never check this. They see a Starmania cabinet, assume all Starmania machines are identical, and start playing without verification. Let me tell you about Jessica, a school teacher who accidentally discovered this machine during a weekend trip to Reno. Jessica wasn't looking for high RTP slots. She didn't even know what RTP meant when she first sat down at Starmania. She just liked the space theme and the game was available when she wanted to take a break from blackjack. But Jessica did something unusual. She started tracking her play, not because she was trying to beat the casino, but because she was curious about her actual entertainment cost. Over 2 years of regular casino visits, playing exclusively Starmania when she played slots, Jessica documented every session. At the end of 2 years, she calculated her actual RTP at 97.1%, within 1% of the theoretical. She'd wagered approximately $32,000 total and lost $928. Her cost of entertainment was less than $50 per casino visit. Here's what's fascinating about Jessica's experience from the casino's perspective. They kept Starmania on the floor, in the same location, for that entire 2-year period. Why? Because according to floor managers, Starmania has such low appeal to recreational players that its physical footprint is minimal. It doesn't take up space that could house a Buffalo or Lightning Link. It's essentially filling a spot that would otherwise go to another low-performing game anyway, and having it available makes educated players like Jessica happy. A former slot director explained it this way: "We keep a few of these around because they make educated players happy, and those players also eat at our restaurants, see our shows, and sometimes play other games where we do make money." High RTP machines like Starmania become loss leaders in the broader customer retention strategy. Machine number 6 is technically not a slot machine, but casino managers classify it the same way, track it using the same systems, and when you hear the RTP percentage, you'll understand why they hate it even more than actual slots. Machine number 6, Full Pay Deuces Wild Video Poker. Now, video poker occupies an interesting category in the casino ecosystem. It's placed on the slot floor, it's counted in slot revenue reports, and casual observers treat it like just another slot machine. But Full Pay Deuces Wild with optimal strategy has an RTP of 100.76%. That number is not a typo. With perfect play, this game has a positive expected value. The house edge is negative. You have a mathematical advantage. Here's the critical detail about Full Pay Deuces Wild that separates it from everything else we've discussed. This isn't about finding a machine with a slightly better return rate. This is about finding a game where the mathematics actually favor you instead of the house. But here's the catch that casinos depend on to protect themselves. The term full pay is doing enormous work in that description. Full Pay Deuces Wild pays 25 coins for 4 of a kind. Most casinos offer short pay versions that pay 20 or 15 coins for the same hand, and those versions have RTPs of 97% or 94%. The difference between full pay and short pay is the difference between having a mathematical advantage and being just another slot player feeding money into the casino's revenue stream. You need to identify the full pay version before you put a single dollar into the machine. And the way to do that is checking the pay table for specific numbers. Full pay shows 5 coins for a flush, 4 for a straight, and 3 for 3 of a kind. Any deviation from those numbers means you're looking at a short pay version. Let me tell you about Michael, because his story illustrates both the potential and the extreme difficulty of actually exploiting this advantage. Michael was a former aerospace engineer who'd spent his career optimizing complex systems, and he approached full pay deuces wild the same way he'd approach any engineering problem, with systematic analysis and disciplined execution. Michael spent 6 months studying perfect deuces wild strategy before he ever sat down at a casino machine. He used software trainers that would flag every suboptimal decision. He practiced until he could play hundreds of hands without making a single strategic error. Then he went hunting for the last remaining full-pay machines in Las Vegas. After visiting 17 casinos, he found one downtown property that still had a single full-pay deuces wild machine, tucked in a corner near the sportsbook at quarter denomination. Michael documented 200 hours of play on that machine over a 4-month period. His spreadsheet showed he was up $3,200. That sounds impressive until you understand what 200 hours of perfect play actually means. Michael wasn't playing casually. He was executing optimal strategy on every single hand, playing through minor distractions, fatigue, and the psychological pressure of maintaining perfect discipline while surrounded by casino noise and activity. Here's what casino management understood about situations like Michael's, and why full-pay deuces wild has been systematically removed from casino floors over the past 3 decades. According to industry data, you could find full-pay video poker everywhere in 1995. By 2025, estimates suggest fewer than 50 full-pay machines exist in all of Las Vegas. This extinction event wasn't accidental and it wasn't random. Casino analytics departments identified that certain machines were being targeted by advantage players who understood the math and executed proper strategy. The response was coordinated across major casino corporations. Remove the full pay versions, replace them with short pay versions that look nearly identical, and count on the fact that 99% of players won't check the pay table carefully enough to notice the difference. If you find a full-pay deuces wild machine today, it's almost certainly at 25-cent denomination. It's located in some corner where casual traffic is minimal, and there's probably a $500 daily cash-out limit to prevent anyone from doing exactly what Michael did. But here's the really insidious part of how casinos manage this situation. A casino operations manager once explained their strategy this way. We keep 1 or 2 full-pay machines as a honeypot. Advantage players think they've found something special. They tell their friends about this amazing find, and those friends come in and play the 97% version sitting right next to it because they didn't check the pay table. The full-pay machine becomes a marketing tool that attracts exactly the kind of educated, high-value customer the casino wants, while the short-pay versions next to it extract money from everyone who didn't do their homework. And speaking of games that casinos are systematically removing, machine number 7 represents something even more important than just another high RTP option. This one shows you the broader pattern of how casinos respond when they discover players are making educated decisions based on mathematical reality. Machine number 7, European roulette, specifically the single zero wheel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Roulette isn't a slot machine, and you're absolutely right. But here's why casino managers classify single zero roulette in the same risk category as high RTP slots and manage it using the same strategic principles. European roulette with a single zero wheel has an RTP of 97.3%. American roulette with a double zero wheel has an RTP of 94.74%. That single pocket, that one additional zero on the American wheel, nearly doubles the house edge. One pocket makes the difference between a 2.7% house advantage and a 5.26% house advantage. Knowledgeable players understand this difference and specifically seek out single zero wheels. Casino managers know that knowledgeable players seek out single zero wheels. And so the same pattern we've seen with high RTP slots plays out with roulette. The better option becomes increasingly rare, increasingly expensive to play, and increasingly difficult to find. According to industry reports, only about 15% of roulette wheels in U.S. casinos are single zero, and they're almost always at minimum bets of $25 or higher. In the 1990s, you could find single zero roulette at $5 minimums in major Las Vegas casinos. Casino analytics showed that as players became educated about the RTP difference, they migrated away from double zero wheels. Between 2000 and 2015, major casino chains systematically replaced single zero wheels with double zero wheels, or even introduced triple zero wheels with an RTP of 92.3%. Here's what this tells us about everything we've discussed. Casinos don't just manage individual machines, they manage the entire ecosystem of player choices. And anytime they detect that educated players are making optimal decisions, they restructure the environment to make those optimal decisions more difficult or more expensive. Let me tell you something that every casino insider understands, but most players never hear directly. Even a 99% RTP doesn't mean you're going to win. It means you're expected to lose 1% of every dollar you wager, calculated over millions of spins, across thousands of players, extended over time periods that exceed any individual gambling session. When I show you these 7 machines, when I give you the specific details about where to find them and which versions to play, I'm not giving you a system to beat the casino. That doesn't exist. What I'm giving you is information about how to lose slower if you've already decided you're going to gamble anyway. Here's why that distinction matters more than you might think. If you walk into a casino with $500 budgeted for entertainment, the difference between playing an 88% RTP machine and a 98% RTP machine is the difference between 2 or 3 hours of play and potentially 40 or 50 hours of play. The mathematics are brutal and precise. At an 88% RTP machine, your expected loss is $60 per hour if you're playing at average speed. At a 98% RTP machine, your expected loss drops to $10 per hour. Same entertainment, same flashing lights and spinning reels, wildly different cost. Former casino hosts have shared something interesting about players who discover high RTP games. These players tend to become more loyal customers because they feel they're getting value. They're not necessarily winning, but they're not losing at the devastating rate they experienced on standard machines, and that perception of fairness keeps them coming back. Here's the counterintuitive truth that casino executives understand. Properties actually benefit from having some high RTP options available because educated players tell their friends, write reviews mentioning the good video poker or the European roulette wheel, and that word of mouth brings customers through the door. Once those customers are in the building, the vast majority will eventually drift to higher margin games, eat at the restaurants, see the shows, book hotel rooms. The high RTP machine becomes the hook that gets educated players onto the property where dozens of other revenue opportunities exist. Now let's talk about the practical reality of finding these machines in physical casinos, because everything I've told you is useless if you can't actually locate them when you walk onto a slot floor. Based on documented slot floor maps and insider reports from former floor managers, high RTP machines follow extremely predictable placement patterns. You will never find them on the main casino floor near the entrance. You will never find them in the high-traffic sections where casual players congregate. These machines get placed near less trafficked amenities like back bars nobody uses, secondary restaurants that aren't the main dining destination, or convention areas during off-season when those sections are essentially dead zones. They show up frequently in older sections of the casino that haven't been renovated in years, where the carpet is more worn, and the general aesthetic signals this isn't where the premium games live. Sometimes you'll find them in high-limit rooms, but watch the denomination carefully because casinos will put a high RTP machine in the high-limit room at a minimum bet that makes the math work back in their favor. A former slot floor manager explained the placement strategy this way. We put high RTP machines where we'd put any low-revenue game, in spots where we couldn't fit a popular title anyway. Here's something casinos don't advertise that you need to understand before you go searching for any of these machines. The same game cabinet at different denominations often has completely different RTPs. The general pattern is that penny slots have the lowest RTP, then nickel, then quarter, then dollar denominations have the highest RTP. But for the specific machines we've discussed, casinos often inverse this deliberately. They'll only offer the high RTP version at the absolute lowest denomination because they know educated players will find it, but the low bet amount limits the total financial impact. Jackpot 6,000, if you find it at all, will be at 1 cent bet levels. The casino accepts that you might play optimal strategy at 98.9% RTP, but when your maximum bet is $1.25 per spin, even perfect play over extended sessions can't generate the kind of losses that concern the analytics department. This brings me to something controversial that I need to address honestly. Most of the machines we've discussed are more accessible in online casinos than physical casinos. Regulated online casinos in jurisdictions like the UK, Malta, and New Jersey require RTP disclosure by law. Physical casinos in most US jurisdictions don't. According to industry data, the average online slot has an RTP between 95 and 96% compared to 88 to 92% for physical casino slots. But here's the catch that protects online casinos despite the higher RTPs. Online play moves significantly faster. You can complete 60 to 80 spins per hour on a physical machine if you're playing quickly. You can complete 300 to 400 spins per hour online. Even with better RTP, your hourly expected loss can actually be higher online because the volume of action compressed into each hour multiplies the house edge application. And I need to say this clearly, only play at licensed, regulated online casinos where the RTP claims are verified by independent testing labs. Unregulated sites can set RTP to literally whatever they want, and there's no oversight preventing them from advertising 96% while delivering 80%. Here's what's been happening over the past decade that casino managers don't talk about publicly, and understanding this pattern will tell you more about the future of gambling than any individual machine discussion ever could. Modern casinos operate using sophisticated analytics systems that track every single machine's performance in real time. Every spin, every win, every loss gets fed into databases that calculate precise metrics down to the individual cabinet level. The key metric that determines whether a machine stays on the floor or gets removed is revenue per day per square foot. And according to internal casino analytics that former managers have shared, a machine needs to generate a minimum of $200 to $300 per day to justify its floor space at major strip properties. High RTP machines consistently underperform this metric, and when they underperform, they get flagged for removal. Let me give you a specific example that illustrates exactly how brutal this mathematics becomes. Bloodsuckers, that 98% RTP machine we discussed earlier, typically generates $80 to $120 per day, according to the data former managers have shared. Buffalo Gold, with its 88% RTP and high volatility design, generates $400 to $600 per day in the same floor position. Casino executives don't care about RTP in isolation. They care about total revenue generation, and Buffalo Gold wins that comparison decisively despite having a much lower RTP. Here's why that happens and why it terrifies educated players who understand what it means. The high volatility of Buffalo Gold keeps players engaged, longer even, though they're losing faster. Players chase those big bonuses. They experience the near-miss psychology of almost triggering the feature, and they stay in their seats feeding money into the machine even during long losing streaks. Bloodsuckers pays frequently in small amounts. Players get bored because there's no dramatic anticipation, and they leave the machine to find something more exciting. Low volatility plus high RTP equals low revenue, and low revenue equals removal. But here's what really scares casino management, and this goes far beyond just the direct mathematical impact of high RTP machines. Multiple former floor managers and slot directors have confirmed that around 2015 through 2017, corporate offices at major casino chains sent explicit directives to properties identifying specific machines that needed to be removed or relocated based on consistent underperformance against revenue targets. High RTP machines were systematically identified in these audits and addressed through a coordinated removal strategy. For every bloodsuckers that got pulled from the floor, a Buffalo Gold or Lightning Link got installed in its place. This wasn't random deterioration of player-favorable conditions. This was deliberate, data-driven optimization of the slot floor to maximize revenue per square foot while maintaining enough game variety to keep different player demographics engaged. The player education factor makes this situation even more complex from the casino's perspective. It's not just that high RTP machines generate less revenue directly. It's what happens when players start understanding what RTP means and how to identify favorable games. There's a documented case from a major casino chain where analytics discovered players were using smartphone apps to identify high RTP machines by photographing paytables and running the images through RTP calculation software. These players would enter the casino, immediately head to specific machine locations, play for predetermined time periods while tracking results, then leave. They weren't chasing wins in the traditional sense. They were minimizing losses while accumulating loyalty program points. When you combine a 98% RTP machine with aggressive comp programs that were designed assuming players would be losing on 88% RTP games, you create situations where players can grind out near zero house edge or even positive expected value when you factor in the comp value. Former casino hosts report documented cases of players who would spend hours on high RTP machines, lose maybe $20 or $30 in actual cash, but accumulate over $100 in comp points that could be converted to free play, meals, or hotel stays. Casino corporations responded to this comp exploitation by adjusting their loyalty program algorithms to reduce earn rates specifically on machines identified as high RTP. But the simpler solution was just removing the machines entirely. Why manage complex comp rate adjustments when you can replace the problematic machine with something that generates 3 times the revenue? Based on current industry trajectory and conversations with former executives who track these trends, here's what the next 5 years likely looks like for players seeking favorable games. Continued systematic removal of any machine consistently performing below revenue targets, increasing prevalence of 85 to 88% RTP as the new standard baseline, and more sophisticated game designs that create the psychological experience of high RTP while actually delivering low RTP through clever feature design and volatility manipulation. One former game developer described the future this way: "We're designing games that feel like 98% RTP but actually deliver 88%, and players won't know the difference because the psychological experience matters more than the mathematical reality." The regulatory environment makes this situation even more challenging for players trying to make informed decisions. Nevada doesn't require RTP disclosure on slot machines. Casinos can install any game with any RTP as long as it meets minimum regulatory thresholds, and players have no legal right to know what they're actually playing. European jurisdictions require detailed RTP disclosure, which is why you see such different game availability and player protection standards across different regulatory environments. The uncomfortable truth that emerges from all of this analysis is that if you want consistent access to verified high RTP games, online regulated casinos increasingly offer better options than physical casinos. But online play comes with its own risks around speed of play and the discipline required to manage bankroll when you can play from home 24 hours a day. We've covered 7 specific machines with documented RTPs ranging from 97 to over 100%. Most are rare, heavily restricted, or removed entirely from major casino floors. High RTP doesn't guarantee wins. It extends playtime and reduces expected loss rate, but the house edge remains. If this information changed how you think about slot floors and casino mathematics, subscribe for more insider content that casinos would prefer stayed internal. Comment below if you've ever found any of these machines, or if you've noticed the patterns we discussed in your own casino experiences. Share this with anyone who gambles regularly, because this is information that genuinely isn't widely distributed. Look, I'm not here to tell you not to gamble. That's your choice and your money. But if you're going to gamble anyway, if you're going to walk onto that casino floor and sit down at a machine, at least do it with complete information about what you're actually facing. The casino has every advantage: location psychology, mathematics, time, information asymmetry. The least you can do is find the games where their mathematical advantage is smallest, because at the end of the day, that tiny edge in the RTP percentage is the only advantage you're ever going to get. This is insider information from former casino employees and industry analysts who've seen how these decisions get made. Use it wisely, and I'll see you in the next one.